Folks, when we come back from our break, we are going to dive right in with our featured guest, Marilyn Redmond. A fantastic lady. She has an awful lot to say. She is an up and coming book author. A book tour that she's. Well, we're gonna just hold on. Keep your hat on your head, right? Because this is a show that you are gonna want to pay attention to. So, folks, don't go away. Let your family, your friends, your neighbors know that we are on the air for today's live show. RobertChristianShow.com. And as we are trying our very, very best, ladies and gentlemen, to make more out of than what is, that is kind of what we do around here. We are joined by Marilyn Redmond. Hello, Marilyn, and it is great to have you back on.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. This is a real joy. I just love being on your show.
You know what, Marilyn? We since the last time that you were on the show, and it's been some time ago, but since the last time that you were on, we have had a backlog, literally, of people emailing us, contacting me, and wanting to have Marilyn back on.
So that's nice to hear.
So you're back on, Marilyn.
Well, terrific.
So tell us a bit about yourself as we begin. Maybe something that very few people know.
Well, I don't know what they know and don't know, but I have learned how to help people in ways that not every counselor would be able to help somebody. What most people don't understand is when we get to the root cause of our difficulties, then the symptoms go away. And that includes the medical symptoms that you go to doctors for and get medications and prescriptions. And your emotional problems can go away if you're having depression or anxiety or problems in that area, or even relationships. You know, when you find out, I had a past life regression gal came to me and she was wanting to get out of codependency, and in the middle of our process of regression, and she says, "Oh, am I doing that? I don't have to do that anymore." So what we learn about ourselves really frees us to do better things with our lives. We have better understanding of where we're coming from.
You know, you open up, Marilyn, a lot of a lot of debate, an awful lot of question.
I'm sure I do.
you do, absolutely. So what can you actually tell us and tell our viewers about it?
Well, you know, we all have come into this lifetime with lessons to learn and situations to overcome, and so many people are afraid to look inside and see who they truly are within. They tend to react from all the situations around us, like the violence that goes on in the newspapers, the news on television, the videos that are so violent, you know, and all of that keeps us in fear. And when we can get past the fear, then we don't have to react from fear. We can start responding in love, and that's who we are supposed to be.
Well, responding in love, and once again, Marilyn, you blow me away with this, because the world, you know, and look, I think I'm preaching to the choir, Marilyn, because the world that we live in is a world that is so full of anger and hate and hostility. And do you honestly believe that there is going to come a time that this will end?
I really, truly do. What we're really going through, and a lot of people don't understand maybe the deeper picture, is all this anger that we're going through and anxiety and the news and so forth. It's really all that energy coming up to leave. And when we discover that anger is really an immature action, we're reacting to something. And I'm choosing today not to be an immature child. I can respond in love, which is called maturity. So the planet is growing up, people are growing up. Right. In all kinds of ways, we're learning to say, I don't have to throw a temper tantrum. That's what anger is a temper tantrum. And, you know, I don't have to stay in fear because I know that the universe supports me in everything. So I don't have to listen to my ego in my head anymore. I get to start listening to my heart, and that's where the love is.
Well, Marilyn, let me ask you this, and a lot of people, I'm sure, are going to be pulling their hair out over it, but I want to ask you, because you are a medium, who do you see actually winning the upcoming election? That's loaded. I know it is.
And I just know that there's going to be some major upsets before the actual election. I'm not going to give any names because I think that's premature at this point. However, I know that there's going to be some changes made in our election systems and our government, and this is all coming fairly soon. Within this year, there's going to be changes that are going to become obvious to the public. They're actually going on right now at a very low level that the public isn't aware of. And when I do channel, I have channeled about the government. There are certain people that are trying to or have accomplished changing laws so what's going on now can't reoccur. And it has to go on in a very secret way because they're trying to stop all the loopholes from things going backwards. And so this is actually transpiring below the surface and will come out into public arena later this year, that we actually will be coming into a new government.
Well, there are some folks that are very concerned with a new world order, and I've heard the expression, I've heard the argument, both sides of it. But what I see happening is absolutely, Marilyn, and I'm with you, that there is going to be some massive changes taking place. But looking at a party line, I think that the majority of these changes, these hiccups and birth pains, are going to come through the Republican side, not the Democratic side.
Well, I think we're going to move into having a leader that might be in the middle. And how about that? Instead of one of the I have a spiritual background in these days, and what I know is we're leaving third dimension, which is right and wrong, good and bad, your side and my side, and we're moving into an area of cooperation and agreement and working things out in peaceful, rational, conservative ways where everybody can come together and participate and contribute. So instead of you against me, it's going to be a sense of unity. And so it doesn't have to be one person right and one person wrong. There is no right and wrong, because what's right for you might not be right for me, because we're all individuals. And so as an individual starts learning of how to handle their life for what's good for them, instead of trying to tell other people how to run their lives, then we quit having all these arguments and dissension.
You know what? That is exactly what we find in a lot of modern day churches and religious organizations, are people who are trying to tell someone else how to live their life. Hey, it's right for me. It has to be right for you. It has to the same truth that I have, you should have, and shame on you if you don't have it. Marilyn, does that put the icing on the cake?
Well, that's a real good way to put it, because our society has treated everybody to be a rubber stamp of everybody else.
You nailed it. You're right. You're right. Hey, Marilyn,
that's why they'll never find the cure for cancer, because everybody has a different reason of why they're ill. And so there is not one answer for cancer. It's an individual situation, and people are individuals. I don't believe in statistics either, because I'm not a number. I'm a person that has my own agenda of what I have to learn in my life, and it might not be the same as yours.
You know, I completely concur. Hey, folks, we are going to be right back with our featured guest, Marilyn Redmond. We're going to be going into her book. And I want to get into her mind just a little bit. You know, as spooky as that might be to some, for me, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to rejoice. No, come on. I want to get into Marilyn's mind, because I want to know what she thinks, why she thinks, get into her book and see really kind of what's going on with her book. And maybe an upcoming book tour. We'll be right back. Don't go away, ladies and gentlemen. Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen, from the Robert Christian Show. I'm your host, Robert Christian, and on today's live show, folks, this is going to be a show that you don't want to miss. Whatever that you do today, this Friday, tune into the show because we're going to be talking about political figures. We're going to be talking about Hillary Clinton versus all of the other candidates. We're going to be breaking this down, ladies and gentlemen, just the way that we did with the Republican Party. Are we biased on the Robert Christian Show? The answer is no. But I am going to discuss, we're going to get into this with Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State. We're going to be finding out what she did and what she didn't do, and Bernie Sanders, what he did and what he didn't do. And ask this question of everybody today, of any political figure who is sold out to their super PAC teams, their big donors, big corporations that donate to them. Hillary Clinton is one example, not wanting to stand in the fire against Wall Street, to stand against their corrupt behavior on Wall Street because they are a part of her financial backing. And I say, really, Hillary? Really? Today on the Robert Christian Show. Live from Washington, the Robert Christian Show. Are we blowing your mind yet? You know what? I want to get into your mind and to see what's going on with you, as well as our featured guest, Marilyn. Marilyn, I'd love to get into people's mind, get into their head a little bit, see what makes them think. But I have a I have a feeling, though, that your book, your upcoming book, that's going to get into the head of a lot of people.
I believe it is. When I give my program in May 21st, this next month, it's called Living in the Principles of Love. It's one of the first things I'm going to say is to leave everything you've learned before outside the door, because we're going to be giving you information that will be different than what you're used to hearing, and hopefully people will be open-minded and start listening to new information. So yes, that's true.
Well, what do you think that people should, as a bottom line, should get out of your book?
Well, hopefully people will start to realize that there's a higher potential in life, an unlimited potential in all of us to empower ourselves and others. And I have found the key to higher consciousness. Most people call it Christ consciousness. Some people call it heaven on earth, a higher power that will bring us into that peace of mind that everybody would really like to have, I'm sure, rather than the frustration and stress of our lives. And so when people come, they can start to leave their fear behind them. I've become fearless, and I know it's possible. In fact, on the cover of my book, there is a sunset. I got rid of all my fears. It's not public speaking, and it wasn't dying, because I've been close to death 12 times. But I discovered that in my case, like we talked about individual situations, I got panicky in an octopus ride years ago in the 6th grade and said I'd never go on anything like that again. And so to go on that huge Ferris wheel at the waterfront in Seattle was absolutely impossible. But I discovered you can substitute faith for fear. And I went up in the space in the wheel, and I put myself in the arms of God, and it was absolutely delightful experience. And we went up late in the day, and I got these sunset pictures. And the pictures on the cover of my book, it's an orange sunset reflecting on Puget Sound, and behind me it was on the windows of the office buildings, and it was just gorgeous. And later I was told in meditation that the orange sky represented Christ consciousness, which means that we can all move out of our fear. I did it. This is actually what Jesus came to show people they could do, but the Bible changed that message. And so, you know, we can all move out of fear and have a life of unconditional love.
Well, Marilyn, I'm going to make a statement, and then afterwards, I would like your thought on the same issue, because I think that it is something, ladies and gentlemen, that I want people to really pay attention to. And this is something, though, that I have not said openly, but at least not to too many people. But in life, there are too many people that burn their house down. Too many people burn it down rather than getting a broom, going outside to your steps that step up into your home and sweeping them off. And this is the deal. There is a spiritual reason for doing so. You're sweeping off the bad. That way only good comes in to where you live. Or you're sweeping out the bad from within and opening yourself up to a brand new dimension and a brand new opportunity. And guess what, folks? We need to have that brand new opportunity in life. You can read books upon books. Your whole house could be full of books. But until you read it from the heart, you've read nothing. Until you open up your heart and you open up your mind to understand that yes, that there is a much better, much greater, a much deeper awakening that is happening, and become a part of that. Because at that moment in your life, that's when you really start sweeping off your doorstep. That's when you start really watching what comes into your house, because you're not going to be so willing and open then to listen to what everybody and their grandmother has to say. You're going to be like, wait a second. I need to pay attention to my right now. I need to pay attention to what's happening in the spirit realm around me right now. And focus on those powerful energies, those powerful inspirations and aspirations in life, and inspire other people to do the same thing. And guess what? Then we're going to see great change. Marilyn, what do you think?
I think you just described my book.
Oh, shucks.
That's exactly what it's about, is we can quit sabotaging ourselves and clean out what doesn't work and put in what does work, and so our lives can be prosperous.
Marilyn, I love you dearly. You know this, but I have not read your book.
I know. That's what was so funny.
It's not on, and no, we didn't have a preordained. Well, maybe it was preordained, but we didn't talk about our book directly before the live show. But so okay. So everybody gets suggests as to what they can do with it. But do you hope that it will be a life-changing experience, Marilyn, for other folks?
Oh, well, that's exactly what I hope. It's been life-changing for me. I came from a very dysfunctional background of alcoholism and mental illness and domestic violence and a lot of addictions and a lot of problems in my life in various ways, illnesses, and I've had to learn how to find new answers. And so my life today, instead of dying, which I really came close to dying many times at this point, I'm actually thrilling. My life is thriving in a beautiful, happy way. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I am still growing and learning, but I'm enjoying life today. I'm doing things I could never have done because of the fear in the past, and I'm finding out that my life just keeps growing more abundantly, and I can have things in my life manifest in my life today. Before, I used to, when I was a little kid, and at Sunday school, the kids would share their stories about what was going on, and I always said, well, that'll never happen to me. And you know what? It's happening to me today. Those things are coming into my life I didn't think were possible.
Well, I think that, life in itself, Marilyn, it offers a lot of people a lot of different things, but never the same thing. And what you have learned in your life as a teacher, what you've learned as I guess, a philosopher, as a spiritualist, and I love that expression, you've opened yourself up to a lot of things that a lot of people need to be opening themselves up to. So as far as your book, where can people grab a copy of it?
Well, it'll be out in a couple weeks, and it'll be on Amazon.com, and it'll also be on my website. Well, in fact, it's actually on my website, but you can't click and get it yet because it's still being at the publishers. But my website is angelicasgifts.com, ANGELICASGIFTS.com. GIFTS. Angelica's my angel. AngelicasGifts.com. And my other books are there now. And so if they wanted to read some of my other books, that's fine. I have Roses Have Thorns, which chronicles my story. And I have The Real Meaning of 2012, for bringing heaven to earth, so you know how to reduce the influence of your ego. And I have several ebooks which are spiritually based, and so I have a variety of books available.
Now, I went to your website yesterday, sometime. Anyway, I went to it and I found that there was a lot of podcasts on there, right?
Yes.
Now, are those podcasts readily available to anyone and everyone?
Well, they're available. Are you talking about my radio show or the YouTubes?
I guess it's the radio show.
Oh, anybody can click on my site and click into the radio show. I had my own show on KLAY in Tacoma, and I had a lot of spiritual guests. It was called Marilyn Solutions, and the programs that I had at that time were really timeless. They weren't current history or current politics or current problems. They were basically authors who had found answers like I'm talking about today and helping to share people with answers. And so the programs were all very much, they're timeless, you might say.
Are you still doing them today?
No, I've actually had to, I can't do everything, and my cup runneth over. I have a lot of hats I wear.
Yes.
And, so that was one thing where instead of having my radio show, I'm now an international columnist for the Sussex newspaper, and I now write columns, and I also have some old columns on my website too from when I did this before, but I've just recently started with the Sussex newspaper, and they're having me as a columnist on a regular basis, and my columns will kind of parallel what's in my book, but in a little different viewpoint, a little different perception. But basically, the message is the same, that we can love each other and love ourselves and enjoy our lives.
I've got to admit to one of my guilty pleasures, and it really was, folks, a guilty pleasure, because when I was on Marilyn's website, I did go to the radio tab, and I listened to 2 or 3 of the shows, at least bits and pieces. Marilyn, I would love to air some of that content here on Diversity Network, because I think that, and you nailed it, timeless. Your content is timeless. When you're talking about the spiritual realm, that's timeless.
Well, that's the truth, and we have not really been told the truth, and I'm here to help reveal the real truth of who you are and what life's about. And when we get into that point, it's not something that is going to be forgotten and left behind. It works all the time. It's eternal information, basically.
Well, Marilyn, here is a number 3 spot question. And folks, I want everybody to listen to this. Marilyn, as a spirit medium, what is the most common question asked of you?
Oh, that is really hard. Everybody comes with a little different problem, and so I can't really say there's one, but I would guess to say the biggest thing asked of me, it always goes back to looking at their ego, and why is the ego running their life. And so it happens in different ways with different people, but if you boiled all the questions down, it's all about how do you eliminate the ego running your life.
A lot of people have, and we've heard the expression, huge egos. You know what people do? They wear it like a shirt. They put it on like a pair of pants in the morning. And is that a good thing or a bad thing to do, Marilyn?
Well, we need a certain amount of ego for our personality to have its substance, but our problem is we have been so needy and lacking and scared and put into a little box to think that our ego compensates for that. And it starts growing like a big hot air balloon. And it gets way out of proportion because we're trying to compensate for what we think we don't have. And all you have to do is poke a pin in that hot air balloon and it'll go back down to right size.
You know what, Marilyn? That is awesome. It is a very interesting look at people's ego. We're going to take a short break, Marilyn, because we are at the bottom of the hour. And, hey, folks, I want to know what you all think. And our featured guest, Marilyn Redmond, she is going to be returning back, ladies and gentlemen, right after this. And I want to ask Miss Marilyn, when we return, who she thinks that I am. You know, sometimes people have a very good intuition, or they have a very good idea, or something, and you know, opening up the door, folks. I am not afraid of finding an element of truth in my life, or perhaps in yours, folks. This is the Robert Christian Show, where your voice, your opinion, they matter, and we will be right back. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, this upcoming Friday, John Finch is going to be joining us. He is a producer, the producer of The Father Effect. We're going to be getting in touch with John, and that will be lovely. John Dissett is also coming on, and Marilyn Redmond is making a cameo. Yes, she is. Mike Nagoda is also coming on. Oh, my goodness gracious. We're going to have a lot of fun, aren't we? We'll be right back. Ladies and gents, let your peeps know that we are on the air. And ladies and gentlemen, you know what? We are back. And I must admit, oh my heavens, you know what? This is because I get very excited about specific guests. And I guess you're one of these guests, Marilyn. But I was looking at my Mighty Pow calendar. That's what I call it, the Mighty Pow. But I had you down today, and you're probably going to laugh at this, Marilyn, but I had you down today as being on for a cameo appearance, not for a full onboard interview and conversation with you.
Well, you put me down for a cameo the day before my program, just to remind people. But today was supposed to be a full program.
Oh, wait a second. No, your event is on the 21st, right? That's tomorrow.
Right. And so it's May 21st, and you can check my website for all the information. It says lectures and events, and you can click on that, get a brochure, and get registration off the brochure to sign up. So 1 o'clock. On the 21st of May, that Saturday afternoon, at the Normandy Park Congregational Church in Normandy Park, and the directions and information is on my website. Oh,
wait, you know what? I did it again, Marilyn. I must be bad or something, because this is April, right? This is not May yet. This is April. Earth Day, right? Now I'm with you. I was a month in advance, because Marilyn is coming back for a cameo on the 20th of May. Whoops, I just let the cat out of the bag. Jerry McMillan is going to be on this upcoming next Friday. And then John Finch is coming on in May. Whew. Marilyn, I am sweating. Okay. Here's an ageless question, or well, timeless maybe, but you know, as a spirit medium, who do you think that I am, Marilyn? Am I an old soul or a new soul?
Oh, I know you're an old soul, and I also can read past lives, and what I picked up was that you were a jester during the times of the Middle Ages, and the jester went town to town sharing the news, right?
Yes.
So you're doing the same thing today with a different format. You just don't have the funny little hat on that you wore when you were a jester. You have a different hat on today. but you're doing the same thing. This has been part of your life course for you, has been to share information and let people know what's going on so that they're aware, because in those days there were no newspapers. And so what you said was very important, not only to the royal court is where the jesters usually, resided, but they went out into the streets of where the people wanted to hear the news too. And you were the carrier of that news to keep people informed, or they wouldn't have had information. So this has been in several of your lifetimes, and that particular one was an important one because there wasn't any media to promote the news like we have today.
Marilyn, the funny thing is, well, maybe oddly enough, but the funny thing is that media chose me. I did not necessarily choose it.
Well, that's what's happened to me too. It chose me. Yeah. What I'm doing chose me.
Now you're even in writing. Now I've had a few things done up in the SGN here in Seattle, and with the paper there, and other written publications. But for me, it's been. It's difficult at best to get into a newspaper. Secondarily, it's just as difficult, or almost that, to be in radio or television these days. It's almost like an inside ball game. So what do you say about it?
Well, I know the media is being controlled. They want people to hear what they want them to hear. And so a lot of good information is withheld or suppressed or stopped. Some people are actually taken off the air. Sad to say, some people have actually been murdered to not give their information out. That's what happened to Tim Russett, I believe. And some other famous people have been hushed up too. Years ago, there was a I don't know if it was Jack Alexander, but there was a very famous columnist years ago that everyone understood that he was giving some information out that they didn't want to be known, and that was the end of him. So it's not a real safe place sometimes to be if you're real open-minded like you are. And, so a lot of people in our entertainment field have been killed because they wanted to express the control and manipulation in the entertainment field that's going on. So yes, you're a real great person to have out there because you're not letting other people tell you what to say. You're saying it the way you see it and how you feel about it.
Well, Marilyn, I try to do just that because, after me being in media for 30 years, well, over 30 years now, that makes me old. But after, all of this time in media, I sit back and I say, what, I would actually do it again. Because look, Marilyn, I don't tell people how to vote. I only encourage them to vote. I don't tell people that it's Republican or Democrat. I let people decide that. In conversations and shows and show ideas and themes, I always say, this is what it is. Now, what do you think about it? Do you feel the same way? Let's grow and let's learn together. Because life is a growing experience, Marilyn.
Oh, I found that to be very true. My whole understanding of this in the last 30 years has changed very much, and it just keeps increasing in increments, you might say.
Well, Marilyn, you are still a very young woman. Do you feel that...
I'm 76 years old.
That look was great. You're still a young woman, but do you still find that you are growing in life every single day? Do you find something that just pops out at you and just forces you to grow even further into what you actually are and can become?
I've had two huge experiences just in the last week of overcoming some old ideas and handling my life in a better way. With my daughter, I made a decision she was going to help me with my program in May. She was helping me get the book together and was going to be there to support me and run the bloggy.
Yes.
And she had something else come up that was really important to her, and I let her off the hook. And for me, that was a very unselfish move to say, go ahead and do what's best for you, and I'll work out the details for me. I'm going to be going to a program tomorrow where I really originally didn't want to be around this person because the energy was not what I would call good energy for me. However, because it's an important situation to be at for various reasons, I had to change my attitude and look at that from a different point of view, and I discovered, oh, those are feelings from the past. The past is over. I don't want to live in the past anymore, so I'm going to go tomorrow in the now where I'm empowered, and that's not going to be an issue because I'm not dealing with that situation or those kinds of situations anymore. I'm not going to let it influence my day because it's really not an issue as it would have been earlier in my life. So yeah, I'm overcoming some big issues.
Marilyn, a good question and a good train of thought here is this, and I really would like to know what you think about it, Marilyn, because the back in the South, in I believe it's the state of Louisiana, the new governor down there signed off on something on legislation, which is now a law that declares that now get this, folks, get this. And Marilyn, you're gonna I'm sure you're gonna fall right into this hook, line, and stinker in Louisiana. But I want to know what you think of this, because the governor has apparently signed a bill into law that states that if you are in a domestic violence situation, that is not grounds for divorce in that state, not any longer. Maryland. Now, I know that we've had conversations, you've had ins and outs with subject matters very close at hand, but what do you think about this?
Well, that's somebody trying to tell you how to live your life so that you're going to die. If I hadn't left my marriage, he was trying to kill me several times. I tried suicide, in fact, as a way to get out. I didn't have answers. And anybody in domestic violence, it is a disease. It's a codependent disease of the soul. And
yes,
it's going to lead to, it gets worse and worse. It never gets better until you have some kind of intervention. And it leads to insanity or death. And so domestic violence is not a row of poppies and flowers. It's tragic, and it's very sad that people are, if they can't leave that kind of an environment, they're going to end up dead. And I mean, that was my experience. I mean, that I'm sitting in this chair today is by the grace of God.
Well, I know that we've done many shows on domestic violence before, but a lot of people, Marilyn, they are so afraid, and through life, they're afraid of their past. They are afraid of the anger, the violence, the temptations, the horrific incidents that have happened in our lives in the past. But what would you say to somebody today as they find a deeper revelation in truth?
Well, that's what's so beautiful about my counseling. I go into the subconscious where you can see it in a different picture. You don't have to go through all the heavy-duty emotions like talk therapy. It raises you into a more calm place where you can see it, but you don't get emotionally tied up into it, and you can go back into that spot without all the trauma and drama and heal it from a loving solution. And so your life can kind of be solved in a way where it can now be fruitful and produce and grow, like you were talking about spiritual growth. We don't have to stay in that bitter morass of trauma and drama that we've been in. We can actually heal it, and that's what regression therapy is all about. And I do past life regressions because it's not just in this life we've had those issues. We've had those issues other times in our lives, and they have to come up now to get healed. This is our opportunity to do it. So, pardon me. So when you can go to someone who can help you do it without having to go through the talk therapy, but in a way it's more calm and peaceful, but it is very effective. And that's really a huge step up from the old way of handling it. Well,
Marilyn, I can say this, and it's not necessarily an ancient Chinese secret, but as far as I am concerned, I too was raised in a very religious home, not a God-fearing home. I was raised in an environment that was anything but kind, gentle, and meek, but rather in a very explosive situation. It truly was. But I have had to learn after so many years of putting that down and saying, no, I'm not going to deal with that today. Well, the day finally came for me, Marilyn, that I had to wake up and say, you know what, I've got to address this. And when the day that happened was the day that I wrote my autobiography. And the autobiography, hey, it's not a million pages long, but it's my autobiography. It's my life story. Some folks may read it and might laugh at it, might say, oh, this guy, he's a whatever. But you know what? That was my story. It still is, and I'm sticking to it. But, the thing of it is, though, Marilyn, that my actual healing in my own life, to overcome the pains of the past, to overcome all of that, was to write it. My mom, she was smart, Marilyn. She'd say, you know what, you need to get a mad book and name it your mad book and write everything when you're mad, when you're angry, when you're aggravated, put it all in this book, your mad book. So that's more or less what I did. For years I did that. Marilyn, is that a good idea or not?
Most people would call that a journal.
Yes.
You kept a journal, and that's where you put those kinds of things so that you don't have to carry them with you forever. You can get them off your chest, so to speak, and that's what counseling's about, is to get it out of your system.
Yes.
When you express it, and if you express it in writing, there is an element of energy that goes into the writing that leaves you, and you're free from it. So your mother was very, very smart.
Well, she was a smart little cookie. Well, she still is. But, I would encourage anybody to write. But for me, Marilyn, and that the awakening, we've talked about the awakening before, but for me, that happened the day that I sat down and I said, you know what, I am going to sit down and write out my autobiography, my story. And if nobody reads it, great. If 1 million people read it, great.
Well, I think that's very smart. We have to become willing to look at ourselves honestly. The real true word of all of this is honesty. And when you got honest, then things changed in your life, because honest connects you to spirit. And if you stay in denial, denial is not a river in Egypt. It's lying to,
Go ahead. All right.
lying to yourself when you don't even know it.
Yes. You know what? You're right, Marilyn. But, okay, percentile. Let's look at percentages for just a second. How many people in this world do you think are truth, living their life in truth and in freedom and true happiness, versus those that are living their life in a lie?
Well, I think you know that as well as I. We're here on earth to change that. And most people have not done that. There's only probably half of 1% that are living in anything close to truth. And most of the time they're called masters. And most of the time they're called spiritual gurus or whatever. And they have sages, there's the shamans. I've been through those different kinds of situations myself, learning, how to move into that space. And I don't have a lot of clients because not everybody wants to look at themselves and be honest. And so when I have a relative, when they went to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist was actually helping them to identify this sexual addiction, they never went back. They didn't want to heal it. Right.
Well, you know what? We've all heard the expression, look in a mirror. Just look in the mirror. Well, trust me, the last time I looked in the mirror, Marilyn, I saw a really good-looking guy looking back at me. And he was just to die for. Just kidding. I was looking at myself. But, when I look in the mirror, though, sometimes I like what, and I can identify with what I see. At other times, I look at it and say, you know what, I don't like this. I don't like that image. I don't like this thing, and I think that all of us are that way because we critique ourselves, and we are our worst critic. So, Marilyn, do you find yourself as your worst critic?
Oh, definitely. There's a little bit of bad in all of us, a little bit of good in all of us, and we've been taught to look at the 10% bad and make a great big thing out of it rather than the 90% good and enjoy the good characteristics that we do have. We tend to bury the good ones and ignore them and look at everything that's wrong with us. My mother was very critical, and when I got into being spiritual, and I asked her, I says, how come you're so critical of me? And she says, well, if I don't tell you what's wrong with you, who will? And so that's how I was raised to sabotage myself, and I was told I was selfish if I did something for myself rather than for her. So we're taught that kind of thing, and that's what the awakening is to turn that around, upside down, flip-flop it. Instead of looking at what's wrong with you, look at what's right with you.
That's right, Marilyn. You are so right. People can be so angry and so frustrated and hacked off looking at what was or what could be but isn't, what they used to have but now don't. They could look at the talents that other people have, or the careers, or the money, the fame, or the fortune, and be maybe somewhat lifted up by looking at it and by that. But at the same token, by putting yourself down. Well, I will never have that, or I could never do this. What makes you really think that?
Well, we have not taught to have self-esteem. And so when you don't have self-esteem, those are the eyes you see yourself through. So learning how to this is what my book's about. How do you release the things that are blocking your self-esteem so you can come into the reality of who you truly are? And all those, is what you were talking about was material items. People base their life on that. The real honest value is what's inside. And when you see that you're a healthy, loving, wonderful, spiritual person who has all this love inside and can share it with others, that's what's eternal. That's your success. That's your richness. When you actually become, instead of a selfish person, a selfless person. There's a quote by Edgar Casey that you get to heaven on the arm of those you help. So who are you helping? Who are you contributing to? How are you being there to be of assistance rather than what's in it for me? All our society's taught to be me, very selfish. If I don't get my way, something's wrong with you. And it has nothing to do with another person. Your wealth is all about how you think about yourself. If you have good feelings about yourself, you'll probably be fairly productive and have all the things you need, because everything we need comes from our attitude. And that's what part of my book shows, how you can release those things that are in the way and blocking it. You already have wealth and prosperity. What's blocking it? So if you come to my program, you'll find in how to identify those things that are stopping what you call success or you call wealth or prosperity, and it can actually come and happen in your life.
Now, Marilyn, we're down to the wire for the first hour of today's show. Tell us just a minute or two about your upcoming event, where it is, when it is, and of course your website and how people can get a hold of you.
Well, I'd love to. The program's called Living in the Principle of Love, and it's going to help you break through your barriers in every area of your life. And it's May 21st, which is a Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. And the location is the Normandy Park Congregational Church, which is up near the airport. Normandy Park is just south of Burien. And so if you are interested in attending, you can go to my website, angelicasgifts.com, and click on Lectures and Events. You'll find a link there for registration and a brochure with more information. People can call me at 253-845-4907. If you don't want to go to my website, you can give me a call, but the registration form is on my website. And if you're interested in more things about me, I have books on Amazon.com. I have a blog, MarilynRedmondBooks.blogspot.com. Lots of lectures and spiritual information on YouTube. And I have a newsletter that you can check with me, and we can hook you up for the newsletter. I do a lot of writing, so I have a lot of information out there. And I just love to hear from people who are interested in growing. And if you're looking for spiritual help and spiritual growth, I can help people with the counseling and getting answers that they were looking for.
Now, do you do your counseling in person, or do you do it over the phone or over the internet, or how does that actually work?
Well, I like to do it in person, but I have done it over the phone, and I have done it over Skype, and I find that, whatever is available. I had a client that was in Chicago, so we did it on the phone. In her case, she was needed extra phone help because of her speaking. And so I have a client in Arizona, but generally the people, I'm in Edgewood, which is between Seattle and Tacoma, and just 30 minutes south of the airport. So I'm right off I-5, easy and handy to find, and I prefer people coming personally, but it doesn't have to work out that way.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Marilyn, I tell you what, we want to have you back on, and for the cameo, I had it on the calendar that it was the cameo, and I was like, oh my gosh, here I really messed it up. But then, lo and behold, I was actually looking at the wrong calendar. I was a month in advance.
That's right.
Marilyn, you do things to my head sometimes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was a month ahead of time. So thank goodness I'm not a month ahead, because there's a lot of things between now and then. And this was one of those shows. And Marilyn, I do want to take the opportunity to thank you for being on the live show today. Ingenious, and I can't wait to read your book.
Well, I hope you want to read it, and everybody else. And if they come to the program, they'll get a copy as part of the registration.
Awesome. All right, Marilyn. Well, listen, I will let you go for now, but I will touch base with you, and we'll see kind of what's going on then.
Oh, thanks for having me. I've had a great time.
Awesome, Marilyn. Well, thanks once again for coming.
Oh, thank you, and have a great day.
You too. All right, folks, Marilyn Redmond, and we are honored to have Marilyn on and visiting with us on the live show.